On some Christmas nights, joy feels too loud and life feels too heavy. So imagine a quiet train that appears only once a year, just after midnight, its windows glowing softly in the snow. The Christmas train for tired hearts is a gentle journey through sleeping towns and silver fields, where worn-out souls sit by frosted windows, watch the stars drift past, and let their worries loosen with each slow turn of the wheels, until all that's left is warm, light, soft snow, and the kind of deep, peaceful sleep they've been missing for far too long. The night I first found the station did not feel like any special night at all. It was one of those quiet December evenings when the city had finished talking and fallen into an absent-minded silence, and the snow had begun its slow, steady journey from sky to earth. The air was cold, but not cruel, and the streets were mostly empty, lined with pale trees that stood like sleepy guardians beside the pavement. Christmas lights glowed here and there in the windows, but they seemed distant, like memories from another life. I walked without any true destination, as if my feet had decided to move and my heart had simply agreed to follow. There was a weight pressing somewhere behind my ribs, a tiredness that had nothing to do with hours of sleep, and I only knew that I needed a short distance from everything that usually surrounded me. I turned down a narrow side street I had never noticed before, though I must have passed its entrance many times. The snow lay thicker there, soft and undisturbed, and the lamppost at the corner leaned a little to one side, its light wrapped in a halo of gentle white. At the end of the street, a small archway opened onto what looked like an old service road, the kind that once might have carried deliveries or stray footsteps. A faint sound reached my ears, too low and slow to belong to any ordinary train, more like a distant hum playing beneath the surface of the air. Drawn by something I could not name, I followed the sound under the archway, my breath rising in small clouds, my steps leaving a simple pattern of footprints behind me. The city's noise slipped away, and the world narrowed to the crisp crunch of snow and the soft murmur ahead, like a song sung behind a closed door. The station appeared not all at once, but in quiet pieces. First came the glow of lamps, warm and golden, suspended above an empty platform that seemed to float in a pool of silver light. Then the shape of an old iron sign emerged from the snow, its letters faded, but still legible if one looked closely enough. The words did not give a name, only a suggestion. Platform, between days. The tracks themselves were almost hidden beneath snow, two dark lines stretching into the white distance, as if leading away from ordinary time. The air felt different there, gentler, as though every sound had been softened before reaching my ears. I stood at the edge of the platform and listened, and slowly I realized that the low, steady hum I heard was the breath of something approaching, something unhurried and patient, like a long exhale on a winter night. A few other people stood scattered along the platform, each wrapped in their own quiet. A woman in a wool coat held her gloves in one hand and stared down at the tracks with a distant gaze. Her shoulders slightly bent, as if carrying unseen lists and unfinished tasks. An older man leaned on the railing, watching the snow fall into the darkness, his face turned away, his expression somewhere between remembering and forgetting. Further along, a young woman sat on a bench with her hands tucked into the sleeves of her oversized sweater. Her eyes lifted not toward the platform, but toward the sky, where the snowflakes drifted through the light like slow, silver stars. No one spoke. No one looked surprised to be there. They simply waited, as if they had been quietly called by the same soft summons that had led me under the archway. The sound of the approaching train grew clearer, yet it never became loud. It was more like the gentle stirring of wind through tall pines, or the distant roll of waves on a calm shore. A pale glow appeared along the tracks, spreading out in a long, smooth curve, and then, with a slow and graceful motion, the Christmas train came into view. Its body was silver, but not the sharp silver of polished metal. It was the soft, dreamlike silver of moonlight on water. The windows were framed in dark wood, and behind them, golden light pulsed quietly, as if breathing in time with the snow. The engine itself did not hiss or roar. It sighed. It exhaled white steam that rose gently into the winter air, curling upward like sleepy clouds. The train came to a stop with barely a tremor, as if it had been passing through a dream and had simply chosen to rest for a while at this platform. The doors stood closed, but not forbidding, their brass handles glowing warmly in the lamplight. The older man at the railing straightened. The woman with the gloves drew a deeper breath, and the young woman on the bench lowered her gaze from the sky to the silver carriages. No announcement was made. No timetable was displayed. For a moment, we all stood in a shared stillness, our hearts moving more slowly than they had in a long time, as if listening for permission to step forward. A figure in a dark coat emerged from between two carriages and walked toward us with calm, even steps. He was not quite like the conductors one sees in ordinary stations. His uniform was simple and old-fashioned, a deep midnight blue that almost blended into the winter night, and his cap bore a small emblem of a star above a tiny sprig of evergreen. His face was lined in the gentle way that comes from years of watching and listening, not from harshness. When he reached the center of the platform, he looked at each of us with clear, kind eyes, as if he had been expecting us for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was low and steady, carrying in the air as naturally as breath. "This train," he said, "runs only on nights when hearts are tired and the snow remembers to fall. It doesn't go far, just enough to give you a little space from your days. You may board if you wish. You may leave at any time when your steps feel ready to return. There is no rush, only rest." No one asked about tickets or destinations. No one questioned the strangeness of a train with no printed schedule. The woman with the gloves pressed her lips together once, then nodded to herself and walked slowly toward the nearest door. The young woman rose from the bench and followed, her scarf trailing softly behind her like a faded ribbon. The older man stood very still for a moment, his hands on the railing, and then he, too, turned and began to move, his pace unhurried, as if feeling the weight of each step and choosing it anyway. I watched them, feeling the soft pressure of the moment, like a hand resting gently on my back, inviting but never pushing. Then I stepped forward as well, my feet carrying me over the snow-dusted platform toward the silver carriage. As my hand closed around the warm brass handle, a strange calm settled over me. It was not the sudden, sharp calm of a decision made in defiance, but the slow, deep calm of a river smoothing its surface after a long storm. Behind me, the city and its invisible clocks seemed to fade. Ahead of me, the window of the carriage glowed with lantern light, and I could see the reflection of snowflakes drifting past the glass like soft, white petals. I opened the door and stepped inside, and at once, the air wrapped around me with gentle warmth, tinged with the faint scent of pine, cinnamon, and something else I could not name, something like old paper and quiet evenings. The conductor stood just inside the entrance, one hand resting lightly on the rail. "Welcome," he said, with a small bow of his head. "You may sit wherever the light feels right." His words flowed smoothly, like part of the train's own rhythm, and I felt no need to reply with anything more than a grateful nod. I moved along the narrow corridor, past velvet seats and soft blankets folded neatly on the armrests, past windows framed by curtains the color of deep red berries. Two of the other passengers had already found their places, settling near the windows, their shoulders softening as they sank into the cushions. I came to a seat where the lantern above cast a gentle circle of light over the floor, blending into the silver glow from the snow outside. And I knew without thinking that this was where I wanted to sit. The moment I eased myself into the seat, the train gave a subtle, almost imperceptible shiver, like a living creature drawing its first long breath. Outside, the platform stood still in the falling snow, its lamps shining with a distant, golden patience. The conductor's footsteps moved quietly through the carriage, and somewhere ahead, a soft chime sounded, clear and delicate, like a single note of music floating through a dream. The doors closed with a muted sigh, not shutting us in, but rather closing the circle of this small, sheltered world. The wheels began to turn with a gentle, steady rhythm, and the Christmas train for tired hearts slipped away from the station between days, gliding into the snowy darkness where time itself seemed to slow to a deep, peaceful exhale. The train settled into its motion like a creature that had finally remembered its own breathing. I felt the gentle sway beneath my feet and the soft, steady murmur of wheels on hidden tracks, a sound so calm that it might have been the hush of a distant tide. For a while, I simply sat in my chosen seat, hands resting in my lap, letting the warmth seep slowly into my fingers and shoulders. The lantern above me cast a circle of golden light that drifted over the polished wood and faded velvet, and the window at my side opened onto a world of silver and white. Snowfields slid past in quiet sheets, and here and there a dark line of trees rose up like a slow-moving wave, their branches dusted with soft, powdered light. The night outside and the warmth inside met at the glass, and I felt as though I was sitting in the thin, peaceful line between them. When my breathing had settled into the rhythm of the train, I found my eyes wandering along the carriage. The lanterns were not harsh or bright. Each one was held in a small brass frame, its glass slightly clouded, so that the light spilled out in a gentle halo rather than a sharp beam. They swayed almost imperceptibly with the motion of the train, their movements slow and graceful, like soft thoughts drifting at the edge of sleep. The ceiling above them was painted in a color that lay somewhere between cream and pale gold, and when the lantern light rose and fell, it seemed to move across that surface like a quiet sunrise and sunset repeated again and again. The walls were paneled in dark wood, the kind that glows softly when it has been touched and polished by many hands over many years. Everything carried a sense of being worn and beloved. Nothing new and bright, but everything gentle and familiar. The woman who had held her gloves on the platform now sat several seats ahead of me, near the opposite window. She had set the gloves down beside her and was slowly unwinding the scarf from around her neck, her movements careful, as if she had spent too long moving quickly and was now relearning how to do things slowly. Her coat was unbuttoned partway, and I could see the faint line of where her shoulders hunched from years of leaning toward others, listening, caring, tidying small messes and large troubles. The older man had taken a place at the far end of the carriage, also by a window, with his hat resting on his knees. His gaze was turned outward, but there was a softness in his posture, as if the sight of the passing snow was already smoothing the hardest edges of his thoughts. The young woman with the oversized sweater sat just across the aisle from me, close enough that I could hear the faint rustle of her sleeves when she folded her hands together. Her earphones lay forgotten in her pocket, and the expression on her face was not quite hopeful and not quite resigned, but somewhere adrift between the two. The conductor appeared at the front of the carriage as quietly as if he had stepped out from the lantern light itself. He did not clap for attention or clear his throat. He simply stood there, one hand resting lightly on the brass rail, his dark coat hanging in calm lines around him, and waited until the natural stillness of the passengers turned toward him. His eyes moved gently from face to face, not measuring or counting, but greeting. When he spoke, his voice was soft and even, carrying just enough to reach every corner of the carriage without needing to rise. "This carriage," he said, "is for those who needed a little distance, just the length of a night and a few snow-covered towns, nothing more. You have come from different streets and different lives, but you share a tiredness, a weight that has grown too used to sitting in your chests. The train cannot erase it. It cannot untangle every knot that your days have tied, but it can hold you for a while, gently, while you remember how your heart sounds when it is not rushing." He paused, letting the soft murmur of the wheels float up between his words. Outside, the world shifted, and a cluster of distant houses appeared on a low hill, their windows glowing like small, warm stars beneath the deeper stars of the sky. Snow drifted around them in slow spirals, and a tall, slender fir tree stood at the edge of the hill, its branches carrying a delicate dusting of light. The conductor glanced toward the windows as if acknowledging the view, then returned his gaze to us. "While you are here," he continued, "you do not need to decide anything. There are no forms to fill, no questions to answer. You may rest your eyes on the snow, or on the lanterns, or on your own hands, if that is where you feel safest. You may speak, or you may remain silent. You may remember past winters, or you may let them drift away like breath on the glass. This night belongs to you in the simplest way. You are allowed to put your burdens down for a little while, even if only in your thoughts." His words did not ask for response, and no one tried to give one. Yet something shifted in the carriage, like a curtain drawn back from a window to let in more light. The woman ahead of me closed her eyes for a moment and leaned her head against the back of her seat, her fingers loosening slightly on the edge of her coat. The older man's shoulders, which had been held in a rigid line, dropped by a fraction, enough to show that some inner knot had eased. The young woman across the aisle let out a breath so soft that it was almost indistinguishable from a sigh, but it carried the feeling of someone who had been holding air in their lungs for too long. I found myself tracing the pattern of the lantern's glow on the floor, watching as it slid and shifted with each turn of the wheels. The light fell over our shoes, over the polished brass fittings, over the slight creases in the carpet from countless steps. Shadows moved gently between the seats, never sharp, always softened at the edges, as if the train refused any harsh lines, any sudden breaks. The windows reflected this golden light back to us, mingling it with the silver outside, so that the faces in the glass seemed to belong to another, quieter world. My own reflection looked both familiar and distant, like a version of myself I had once known as a child, sitting up late to watch snow under the street lamps. The conductor stepped slowly down the aisle, not to inspect or to judge, but simply to be near. When he passed my seat, I caught the faint scent of pine and cold air carried in on his coat, and something else, something like the soft dust of old books left in quiet rooms. He stopped near the center of the carriage and rested his hand on the back of an empty seat. His fingers relaxed, as if the wood beneath his palm were an old friend. His presence had the quality of a steady candle placed in a dark corner, not blazing, not demanding attention, but gently changing the nature of the shadows around it. "We will pass through towns," he said, "where people are setting tables and lighting candles, where trees are decorated, where choirs are practicing in small churches, where some are rejoicing and some are grieving. You will see their lights through the snow. They will not see you, but that is all right. This journey is not about being seen. It is about looking out until your own heart feels a little less crowded." His gaze turned toward the window, and instinctively, all of ours followed. The view had shifted again. The train was gliding past a cluster of dark pines, their branches heavy with snow that caught the moonlight and turned it into delicate silver lace. Beyond the trees, a frozen river lay like a band of pale glass across the land, its surface smooth and still. Far in the distance, a church tower rose against the sky, its cross barely visible but clearly outlined by a gentle halo of light. Tiny points of gold shone at its base, candles in unseen hands, or perhaps simply the glow of warm windows reflected on the snow. The sight was simple, almost ordinary, and yet it carried a quiet tenderness that reached deep into the silence of the carriage. The wheels continued their soft, soothing song, a repetitive, rhythmic sound that felt almost like a lullaby for those who had forgotten how to rest. The lanterns swayed in time with it, their light brushing the edges of our thoughts. I felt my mind, usually crowded with lists and memories and unfinished sentences, begin to empty out into the calmness of the night, like a jar slowly tipped until its contents flowed gently away. There were no urgent messages here, no ringing phones, no blinking screens, only the soft silver of snow and the warm gold of lanterns, only the steady presence of other quiet souls who had also needed a pause. After a while, the conductor inclined his head slightly, as if to acknowledge that the carriage had understood enough for now. "If you need anything," he said, "you may press the small brass bell beside your seat. It will not ring loudly. It will simply let me know you are calling. Otherwise, you may simply be. The train knows the way." With that, he moved on, his steps as measured and gentle as before, disappearing through the door at the end of the carriage. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and we were left once more with the muted music of the wheels and the whisper of snow against the windows. No one rushed to speak. Words felt unnecessary, as if the night had already said all that needed saying in the language of light and shadow. I turned my eyes back to the window and watched as the landscape unfolded in a slow, peaceful procession. Another village came into view, this one smaller, with only a handful of houses gathered around a square. A single Christmas tree stood in the center, its branches adorned with simple strings of faintly glowing lights. The wind stirred the snow on the roofs in soft, drifting veils, and the sky above was a deep velvet blue touched with silver stars. For a moment, I imagined each light in those houses as a small, steady heartbeat, and it comforted me to know that even as I traveled through this quiet corridor of the night, life continued softly everywhere. Inside the carriage, warmth and silence wove together like a gentle blanket. Shoulders relaxed, hands unclenched, thoughts slowed to the pace of the passing pines and the drifting snow. Wrapped in lantern light and moon silver, with the steady rhythm of the wheels beneath us, we began to settle more deeply into the truth of this journey. That for one long, tender night, we were allowed to step away from the sharp edges of our days and sit together in a moving room of golden light, watching a peaceful world glide by. The Christmas train carried us forward, unhurried and sure, through the soft darkness, while somewhere deep inside each of us, a very tired heart began to remember how to rest. The train had been moving for some time in its gentle, unhurried way when I noticed that the woman with the gloves kept glancing down at her empty hands, as if searching for something that was no longer there. The gloves lay neatly folded beside her on the velvet seat, their fingers slightly curled, but her own hands remained in the air for a moment, poised in the shape of someone who is used to holding paper, pens, receipts, notes, and all the thin, crinkling things that tether a person to their responsibilities. There was a faint crease between her eyebrows, the kind that forms not from anger, but from years of counting, remembering, checking, and rechecking. Her hair, streaked with soft silver at the temples, had been gathered into a simple knot at the back of her head, but a few strands had escaped and curled along her cheeks, catching the lantern light like threads of pale gold. For a while, I only watched her quietly, not with intrusion, but with the kind of gentle curiosity one feels toward a stranger whose weariness is familiar. The train's motion wrapped around us, and the window beside her framed the passing night like a moving painting. Snow-covered fields glided past, broken occasionally by dark hedgerows and sleeping trees. The moon was higher now. Its silver light poured generously over the land, making the white surfaces glow softly, as if lit from within. Here and there, a faint cluster of lights appeared in the distance, a small town resting in its own dream, its rooftops pulled up like blankets against the cold sky. Each time we passed such a sight, her eyes flicked up to the glass, lingered for a breath, then dropped back to her open hands as though she were trying to remember what they were supposed to be doing. I felt the train drawing us into a quieter depth of the night, and with it came a gentle tug inside me, an invitation to move. After a moment's hesitation, I rose from my seat, steadying myself against the smooth wood of the armrest as the carriage swayed. The lantern light followed me as I walked slowly along the aisle, its glow sliding over the carpet and the polished brass fittings, over the edges of folded blankets and the curves of sleeping shadows. When I reached the seat opposite the woman, I paused, waiting to see whether my presence would startle her. She looked up, and for the first time, I saw the full expression in her eyes, a mixture of apology and exhaustion, as if she were forever sorry for taking up space and forever tired of having to apologize for it. "May I sit here?" I asked softly, my voice matching the quiet rhythm of the train. She seemed surprised by the question, as if the idea of someone asking permission to sit near her was unusual. Then she gave a small, weary smile, the kind that appears out of habit more than out of joy, and nodded. "Of course," she replied, her voice low and slightly hoarse, as though she had spent many years speaking in kitchens and hallways and bedrooms where others lay sleeping. I settled into the seat across from her, the cushions sighing gently beneath my weight. For a few breaths, we simply sat in silence, the space between us holding nothing more than the soft rustle of the train and the whisper of snow brushing against the windows. The lantern above our heads cast a shared circle of light over our hands, over the gloves folded beside her, over the faint shimmer of frost clinging to the window pane. Outside, the world continued its slow procession, a line of bare trees, a distant barn roof carrying a smooth pillow of snow, the shadow of an old stone wall half buried beneath winter's quiet patience. "I keep thinking I've forgotten something," she said at last, looking not at me, but at her hands. A list, a call, a cake in the oven, a present I meant to wrap. There's always something waiting for me somewhere. It's strange to be here and know that nothing is waiting, at least not for a few hours. Her words fell into the space between us like small, tired birds coming to rest. I nodded slowly, feeling both the simplicity and the weight of what she had said. "Have you always had lists?" I asked gently, more as an invitation than as a question that needed a precise answer. She let out a breath that was almost a laugh, though there was little humor in it. "Always," she said. "At least it feels that way. Groceries, school meetings, doctor appointments, birthday parties, Christmas dinners. Who likes what? Who can't eat what? Who needs to sit where so they won't argue? My husband works late. My parents grew frail. The children grew up, but the lists did not grow smaller. They just changed their handwriting. Now it's grandchildren and medications and finding the old ornaments in the attic because it doesn't feel like Christmas without them, Mama." She paused, her eyes drifting toward the window, where a cluster of small houses appeared, their chimneys sending up thin threads of smoke into the silver air. "Some days," she added softly, "I don't know if I'm celebrating Christmas or managing it." The train glided past the houses, and through one lit window we glimpsed a tree, humble and thin, standing near a table where someone was setting plates. The image lasted only a moment, but the warmth of it lingered, like the echo of a quiet carol. I watched the reflection of that little tree travel along the glass, passing over her face, painting her features with a brief wash of green and gold. "Do you remember?" I asked in the same low tone. "A Christmas without lists?" She smiled again, but this time the smile was softer, less practiced, as if it had to reach back through many layers to find its way up. "Yes," she murmured, closing her eyes for a moment. "When I was young, there were no lists for me, only for my mother. I didn't notice them then. I only saw the snow and the little nativity set on the mantel and the bowl of oranges that appeared on the table as if by magic. My father would bring in a small tree, never very big, but it filled the whole room with the smell of pine. We made paper stars together, and my fingers were always sticky from glue and sugar. I went to bed believing that the world would take care of itself while I slept." Her voice grew quieter, taking on the rhythm of someone walking slowly through old rooms in their memory. "One year," she continued, "the power went out on Christmas Eve. The whole street went dark. I remember standing at the window, frightened at first, and then seeing candles. In every house, tiny lights in the dark. We put candles on the windowsill too, and my mother said, 'Look, now we are all stars for each other.' We sat by the tree, wrapped in blankets, telling stories while the wind rattled softly against the window. There was no oven, no timing, nothing to check. It was the simplest Christmas we ever had, and yet I think of it more than any other." As she spoke, the train seemed to respond, as if the memory had reached out and touched the night. We were passing a small village now, its streets blanketed in snow, the roofs quietly sloping under the weight of winter. Here and there, candles did indeed glow in windows, some bright, some dim, each one a small, steadfast flame in the soft dark. A tall church stood near the center, its steeple pointing gently toward the sky, and along its steps, little lanterns had been placed in a row, their light spilling onto the snow like melted gold. The scene was so simple, so peaceful, that it felt as though it had been called forth by her words, drawn across the tracks for us to see. I described what I saw, not elaborating, just naming it softly. The church, the lanterns, the candles in the windows, the way the snow on the rooftops caught the moonlight and turned it into gentle, silver blankets. As I spoke, I noticed her breathing change, becoming slower, deeper, as if each image I offered carried away one small piece of the invisible weight she bore. Her hands, which had been tensed on her lap, loosened. One hand drifted toward the window, her fingers barely touching the cool glass, tracing the faint line where a flake of frost had formed. "I don't remember the last time I looked out of a window," she said after a long pause, without thinking about what needed to be done next. Even when I watched the snow, I was counting minutes. How long until I have to go to the oven, to the sink, to the phone? She turned her head slightly, meeting my gaze. On this train, the snow is just snow. The houses are just houses. I don't need to arrive with anything. There's nowhere I'm late for. The lists can wait, I said gently. For one night, they can sleep in a drawer somewhere, like children who have finally been tucked in. She let out a trembling breath that was almost a sigh and almost a laugh. "I don't know if I remember how to rest," she admitted, "but I suppose I can practice. While the train moves, while the snow falls, while someone else watches the time. The train knows the way," I reminded her, echoing the conductor's words. And outside, Christmas keeps its own quiet watch. You don't have to manage it from here. We fell into silence again, but it was not the strained silence of people who do not know what to say. It was a softer quiet, shaped by shared images and old memories. The carriage continued to glide through the night, carrying us past forests where the branches reached up like dark lace against the silver sky, and fields where the snow lay smooth and untouched, waiting for morning. Every now and then, the lantern above us swayed a little more deeply, sending its warm light across her face, smoothing the lines of worry into something gentler. Her eyes grew heavier, the circles beneath them softening as the weight behind them loosened. She leaned her head against the back of the seat, then slowly let it rest against the cushioned side near the window, as if drawn toward the quiet world outside. Her hands folded themselves over her stomach, empty of lists, empty of tasks, holding nothing but the simple rise and fall of her own breathing. When she finally closed her eyes, it was not with the tight, defensive shut of someone snatching a moment of sleep before the alarm, but with the gradual yielding of a heart that has, for the first time in a long while, been given permission to stop measuring every second. As the Christmas train carried us deeper into the soft, silver night, I watched the reflection of her peaceful face in the window, mingling with the image of snow-covered towns and little glowing windows. It seemed to me that the world outside was breathing with her now, slow and even, a long, gentle exhale over the land. Somewhere in a kitchen far away, someone might be looking at a list and feeling overwhelmed. Somewhere, a clock might be ticking too loudly. But here, in this carriage of lantern light, a woman who had carried too many lists had finally put them down, if only in her mind. And in that small, tender space between the snow and the glass, she was learning again that rest, too, is a gift, and that even the tiredest heart can grow softer when it is allowed to simply sit and watch the quiet Christmas world drift gently by. When I rose from my seat again, the woman who carried too many lists was drifting into a gentle sleep, her breath even, her hands still and empty on her lap. The lantern above her cast a soft halo around her resting face, and for a long, quiet moment, I stood watching the rise and fall of her shoulders, grateful that the night had wrapped her in its patient calm. Outside the window beside her, the snow was falling in finer flakes now, almost like ash from some distant, peaceful fire, and the moonlight lay on the fields in a smooth, unbroken sheet of silver. I turned away from her, knowing the train would keep her safe, and let my steps carry me down the aisle toward the far end of the carriage, where the older man sat alone by his window, his hat still on his knees, his posture held between resignation and reverence. As I drew nearer, I noticed how carefully he was sitting, as if any sudden movement might cause something fragile and invisible to shatter. His hands rested on the brim of his hat, fingers slightly curved, knuckles pale. He wore a dark wool coat that had clearly seen many winters, its fabric smoothed and softened in the places where his hands had always reached collar, cuffs, buttons. His hair was thin and silver, combed with absent care, and his face, though lined, held none of the bitterness that sometimes settles into tired features. Instead, there was a quiet ache there, the kind that arises when love does not know where to go. He was not watching the scenery as others had been. His gaze seemed fixed on something just beyond the glass, something only he could see. I paused at the edge of his row and gently cleared my throat, the sound barely rising above the murmur of the wheels. "May I sit here?" I asked, keeping my tone low, as if I were entering a chapel. He looked up, as if returning from far away, and for a moment his eyes were unfocused, adjusting from the distant place in his mind to the warm lantern light of the carriage. Then he nodded once, slowly, not in politeness alone, but in a quiet acceptance of shared company. "Please," he said, his voice roughened at the edges, like paper that has been folded and unfolded many times. "No one should have to ride alone on a night like this." I took the seat opposite him and felt the train's motion steady itself beneath us, as if acknowledging this small gathering of two. The lantern above us swayed gently, its light traveling across his face, emphasizing the hollows beneath his cheekbones and the soft lines around his mouth. Outside, the world was changing again. We were leaving the open fields and entering an area where the land rose and fell in slow, rolling hills. Pine trees clung to the slopes, their trunks dark against the snow, and the wind moved through their branches with a low, hushed sound, like breathing in a dream. Somewhere ahead, a faint glow marked the presence of another town, hidden behind the curving line of the hills. For a time, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was not empty. It felt full of things unsaid, of chairs at tables, of footsteps down hallways, of names that hovered just behind the lips. The man glanced once more at the window, then back down to his hands, and I saw that his fingers were tracing, unconsciously, the outline of a circle on the brim of his hat, over and over, as if outlining a place that used to be filled. "You came for the same reason we all did," I said softly at last, not as a question but as a gentle recognition, because life grew too heavy to carry without a small rest. He gave a faint smile, though it did not quite reach his eyes. "Yes," he replied, the word leaving his mouth on a sigh. "You could say that. Though for me, it is not life that is heavy. It is absence, the weight of what is not there." He lapsed into silence again, then added in a quieter tone, "This will be the first Christmas without her." The train seemed to respond with a softer sway, as if adjusting itself more carefully to the tracks. I did not ask who she was. The pronoun carried enough reverence to make the name, for now, unnecessary. Instead, I turned my gaze to the window beside him. The hills had parted, revealing a wide, open valley, and at its center, like a small jewel tucked into a fold of white cloth, lay a village. Its houses clustered around a modest square, their roofs piled high with snow. At the far end of the square rose a church, simple and solid, its stone walls pale beneath the moonlight. The steeple lifted itself toward the sky, and at its peak, a small cross caught the silver light and held it quietly. We watched as the train curved past this scene, moving slowly along its unseen path. The lights in the village windows glowed in shades of gold and amber. Through one large window near the center of the square, we saw a long table set with a white cloth, plates arranged in a neat pattern, glasses catching the light in small, bright flashes. A Christmas tree stood in the corner, its branches decorated with modest ornaments that shone like tiny planets in a green universe. For just a heartbeat, as the train aligned with that window, a figure passed between us and the table, carrying a stack of plates. Then the view shifted again. The church tower came between us and the square, and the scene slipped away behind a stand of trees. "That table," the man said quietly, his eyes still fixed on the fading village. "It looked almost like ours, the way she always insisted on placing the plates, the cloth pulled straight, the candles in the brass holders her grandmother gave her. She was never happier than when she was preparing that table. Even when she was tired, she glowed. It was as if the simple act of making a place for others to sit and eat gave her more strength than it took away." His voice wavered slightly, but he did not turn away from the window. Instead, he watched the trees, the snow, the pale shapes of distant roofs, as if his memories were painted there. "Every year," he continued, "she would say, 'Don't worry, I know who sits where. Trust me.' And I always did. She knew every preference, every old quarrel, every gentle bond. She made sure that laughter met sadness at just the right angle, so that it could soften it without overwhelming it. She knew who needed to be near the children, who needed to be near the quietest corner, who needed to be near her. And your place?" I asked, my voice as calm as the lantern light. "Where did she put you?" He smiled then, truly smiled, though it was a soft, sad smile that curved his mouth like a half moon. "Beside her," he said simply, "always beside her, at the head of the table. She said it helped her to look up and see me there. But the truth is, it helped me more. It reminded me that all of this," he gestured vaguely toward the window, toward the world, the shopping and the cooking and the bustle. "It was all just the wrapping around a very simple gift, being together, breathing in the same room, watching each other's faces in the candlelight." The train carried us onward, the rhythm of the wheels like a gentle pulse beneath our conversation. Outside, the valley receded, and we passed through a short stretch of forest, the trees closing around us like tall, dark guardians. Snow clung to their branches in rounded pillows, and the moonlight filtered through the needles in narrow beams, painting the snow below in stripes of silver and shadow. In the distance, faintly, there came a sound that could almost have been bells, a soft, far-off chiming, carried thinly on the air. It might have been real, from the church we had just passed, or it might have been the echo of memory. On this train, such distinctions mattered less than the feeling they brought. "She was ill?" I asked softly, when enough time had passed for the question to settle comfortably. "Or was it sudden?" He considered for a moment, as if searching for the right shape of the truth. "Both," he said. "She had been growing weaker each winter, like a tree that loses a little more of its strength with every storm. But we both chose to believe, every year, that there would be one more Christmas, one more table set, one more evening of candles and carols. Last year, she insisted on planning everything, even from her chair. I told her we did not need the feast, that we could simply sit together with tea and soup. She smiled and said, 'Yes, of course. But let me dream the rest, will you?' So she dreamed it, and I carried it out as best I could. This year," his voice trailed off, and he looked at his hands again. "This year, her chair will be empty, and that table, no matter how I set it, will seem wrong, as if I have spelled a word incorrectly that only she could spell." I imagined the scene as he spoke, a chair with a cushion pressed slightly inward by the shape of a body that would not return, a plate that might or might not be placed there, a candle burning in front of no face. The image was tender and sharp at once, but the night outside seemed to lean in, wrapping its softness around it. The snow on the branches, the faint chiming of bells, the silver path of moonlight along the train's side, all of it combined into a gentle cradle for his grief, holding it, not denying it, but keeping it from hardening into something unmanageable. "Grief," I said quietly, "is also a kind of presence. It sits where someone used to sit. It stands in doorways. It touches plates and cups. It isn't the same as having them there, but sometimes, if we let it be gentle, it can feel like a continuation of their love, speaking in another language." He listened without turning away, his gaze resting on the window where the forest was thinning, and a new stretch of open land appeared, glowing softly. "People tell me I should be strong," he murmured, as if strength means pretending that her chair is just a piece of furniture, as if it means not noticing the sound of her voice missing from the room. "I don't feel strong when I try to ignore these things. I feel hollow." "Perhaps," I suggested, "strength is not ignoring the empty chair, but sitting beside it and allowing yourself to feel everything it brings, the love, the ache, the stories. Perhaps on this train, you are allowed to miss her openly, without anyone telling you what shape your grief should take." The man's eyes glistened in the lantern light, but his tears did not fall. They remained where they were, quiet and shining, like small stars caught in the gravity of his longing. He drew a long, slow breath, letting it out in a measured exhale that seemed to carry both heaviness and relief. "She loved the sound of church bells at night," he said after a while. "When they rang on Christmas Eve, she would always stop what she was doing, even if she had flour on her hands, and listen. 'There,' she would say. 'Now it's Christmas.'" Outside, as if summoned by his words, the faint chiming came again, clearer now. The train was passing another small town, this one nestled at the foot of a hill. A church stood there as well, its tower simple, its bells sending out a delicate music that floated over the rooftops and the snowy streets. The sound reached us as a thin silver thread, weaving its way through the windows and the lantern light, wrapping itself around the man's hands, his hat, his heart. We sat together in silence, listening until the bells faded into the distance and the train moved on. "She would have liked this," he said softly. "This train, this quiet, the way the snow makes every light seem softer. She used to say that winter was the season when the world whispered instead of shouted." "Then perhaps," I replied, "she is very near tonight, in the whispering, in the bells, in the way you still know exactly how she set the table, Love does not disappear with the body. It lingers in the details, in the rhythms of our days, in the way our hearts still make room at the table, even when the chair is empty. The man nodded, and his fingers finally loosened their grip on the hat, resting instead on his knees. Outside the window, the landscape opened into a wide, silver plain, and above it, the sky stretched vast and deep, scattered with stars that shimmered like distant candles. The train moved gently through this quiet sea of light and snow, carrying with it a man who missed someone at the table, and a heart that was slowly learning how to sit beside absence without being consumed by it. In the soft glow of the lantern, in the silver hush of the winter night, his grief did not vanish. It simply grew more peaceful, like a candle flame that had found a calm room in which to burn. And as the Christmas train continued its patient journey past sleeping towns and snow-covered churches, it held his sorrow the way it held the woman's exhaustion and my own unnamed weariness, carefully, kindly, without hurry, allowing each of us to breathe a little more deeply, to feel a little more gently, and to hope that, when the time came to return to our tables and our rooms and our quietly waiting chairs, we would do so with hearts made softer by this long, silver night of rest. When I finally rose from my seat opposite the man who missed someone at the table, the bells had long since faded into the distance, leaving behind only a soft echo in the air and a gentler expression on his face. He sat very still, eyes half closed, as if listening to some inner chime now, a sound that belonged not to stone towers and swinging metal, but to memory itself. I did not wish to disturb whatever quiet was unfolding within him, so I inclined my head in a small, wordless farewell and turned away, letting the train's slow sway guide my steps back down the aisle. The carriage glowed like a long, golden cocoon in the darkness, lanterns swaying softly, windows silvered with thin traces of frost. Snow murmured against the glass, and beneath it all, the wheels sang their low, rhythmic song. As I moved, I passed the woman who carried too many lists, still sleeping in the gentle light. Her head rested against the cushioned side of the window, her features relaxed in a way that spoke of rare and precious rest. Her hands, empty of paper and pens, lay loosely folded on her lap, rising and falling with each deep, even breath. Outside her window, the night had drawn a pale curtain of clouds across part of the sky, but the moon still shone through in a soft, diffused halo, bathing the snow-covered fields in a dreamy, milk-white glow. I watched her for a moment, grateful that the train had given her this quiet, then continued on, feeling the warmth of the carriage wrap around me like a shawl. A few rows ahead, near the center of the carriage, sat the young woman I had noticed earlier, the one with the oversized scarf and the earphones tucked away in her pocket. She was turned slightly toward the window, but not quite touching it, as if unsure whether to look out or retreat back into herself. The lantern above her cast a pool of light over her shoulders, revealing the familiar language of her posture. A slight hunch forward, arms drawn in, like someone bracing against a chill that did not come from the air. The wool of her scarf was pulled up almost to her chin, and strands of dark hair escaped from beneath it, resting against her cheeks. Her gaze did not follow the passing scenery. Instead, it seemed to linger on her own reflection in the glass, watching herself as though she were one more piece of the winter landscape. I approached slowly, letting my footsteps blend with the soft creak of the carriage and the distant whisper of the wind outside. When I reached the seat opposite hers, I paused in the aisle, letting the quiet settle before speaking. "May I sit here?" I asked gently, as I had with the others, knowing that even simple questions can sound loud in such a peaceful space. She turned her head, and her eyes, though young, carried a tiredness that did not belong to the body, but to the spirit. There was no anger in them, only a faint, flat disappointment, as if she had come to expect very little from the world and did not wish to be surprised. After a heartbeat, she nodded, giving a small shrug that might have meant, "If you like," or "It doesn't matter." Though I sensed that, deep down, it did matter more than she would say. I sank into the seat opposite her, feeling the cushions receive my weight with their usual soft sigh, and allowed a few breaths to pass in silence, giving the moment time to find its own shape. Outside, the landscape had opened up again. The train was gliding alongside a broad, frozen river that shone under the moon like a long, silver ribbon. Its surface, smoothed and hardened by the cold, reflected the sky in pale, wavering patterns. On the far bank, clusters of leafless trees stood in small gatherings, their branches drawn against the sky like delicate charcoal lines on white paper. Here and there, the shadows of bridges stretched across the ice, their arches forming dark, gentle curves that seemed to cradle the river instead of cutting through it. The entire scene had a quiet, dreamlike quality, as though we were traveling through an old postcard that had been carefully preserved in someone's memory. She followed my gaze at last and glanced briefly at the river, then looked away again, her mouth tightening. "Pretty," she said softly, the word flattening as it left her lips, like a Christmas commercial. Snow, lights, reflections. I suppose the next thing we'll see is a big, sparkling tree and some perfect family hugging under it. There was no real bitterness in her tone, only a weary cynicism, the kind that grows when a person has been told the same story too many times and has ceased to believe it. I let her words rest for a moment, then smiled gently. "Perhaps," I replied, "but this river has never seen a commercial. It doesn't know how it is supposed to look. It only knows how to freeze and shine under the moon." She gave a quiet snort, more of breath than of sound. "Maybe," she murmured. "It's just, it all feels like a copy these days. Christmas, the songs, the movies, the decorations, stores starting in October, selling the same things. People rushing around with bags, posting their trees online, asking, 'Does it look cozy enough?'" She shook her head, staring at her hands. "When I was small, it felt different, softer, slower. Now it's just loud and bright and tiring, like someone turned the volume up and left it there." "Do you remember," I asked quietly, "what it was like when it felt softer?" Her eyes softened a little at the question, and for the first time since I had sat down, she allowed herself to look out the window for more than a glance. The river unrolled beside us like a calm silver road, and the distant lights of a town shimmered faintly on its surface. "I remember," she said slowly, as if stepping onto fragile ice, "the way my father would take me to see the town square at night. They didn't decorate much, not like the big cities, but there was always one tree. It wasn't perfect. Some branches were crooked. Some lights didn't work. But he would hold my hand and say, 'Look how it shines anyway.' We would get hot chocolate in paper cups, and I would blow on the steam and watch it disappear into the cold. It felt peaceful, like the whole world was breathing quietly together." As she spoke, the train curved gently, and the landscape outside shifted. Now we could see a small town nestled close to the riverbank, its buildings modest and close together, their roofs capped with snow. In the center, near the water, stood a tree, not tall and magnificent, but modest, its branches uneven, its decorations simple. A few strings of lights clung to it, some glowing brightly, others dimmer, one or two flickering as if unsure whether to remain awake or give in to rest. Around it, the snow in the square was uneven, bearing the soft indentations of many footsteps, and a bench sat nearby, half buried in white. It was not the scene from a perfect advertisement. It was real, a little uneven, a little worn, and quietly beautiful. I pointed toward it gently. "It seems," I said, "that your memory has sent us a greeting." She followed my gesture and stared at the tree, a faint crease forming between her brows, not of irritation, but of wonder. "It does look like it," she admitted, "even the way the lights flicker." For a moment, her face changed, losing some of its tiredness, and in the reflection on the glass, I could almost see the outline of a smaller version of her, eyes wide, cheeks flushed from cold and excitement. "I suppose," she went on softly, "there were never perfect Christmases. Even then, I just didn't see the cracks. I only saw the lights. The cracks were there," I agreed gently, "but you were allowed to look past them. Now, perhaps, it feels as though the cracks are all you can see, the crowds, the noise, the push to make it special, bigger, brighter. It can be exhausting to be told that a feeling must be huge and sparkly in order to be real." She nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of the scarf at her throat. "Exactly. Everyone says, 'Feel the magic,' but no one says how, when your head is full of work and bills and news and worry. I walk through the decorated streets and feel nothing, just tired. Then I feel guilty for not feeling what I'm supposed to feel." The train slipped past the town and into a quieter stretch where the river widened and the banks grew emptier. Snowdrifts formed gentle waves along the edge of the ice, and the sky above opened into a broad, deep bowl of dark blue, scattered with stars that shimmered like tiny silver seeds. The moon hung lower now, and its light lay on the river like a calm, luminous hand. In the distance, the faintest echo of laughter drifted across the frozen air, perhaps from a group of children skating on some sheltered cove, or from people leaving a gathering with cheeks flushed and hearts lighter. The sound was so soft that it could have been memory itself, but it carried no rush, no demand, only a gentle reminder that joy can be quiet too. Maybe, I said slowly, magic doesn't always feel like a spark. Sometimes it feels like a soft weight being lifted from your shoulders, like the first deep breath you take after forgetting to breathe fully for a long time. Perhaps your Christmas hasn't faded. Perhaps it has just hidden itself in smaller, quieter places, away from the noise. She watched the stars reflected on the river, the way the silver points trembled slightly on the surface as the train moved. Smaller, quieter places, she repeated under her breath, as if testing the words. Like what? Like this train, I answered. Like the way the lantern light and the snow meet on the glass, like the sound of distant bells, like the way you remembered your father's hand and the imperfect tree and the steam from your hot chocolate. None of those moments were loud. None of them needed to be photographed or posted. They were soft, peaceful, and they stayed with you. That is a kind of magic that cannot be sold, only noticed. Her eyes filled with a sheen of unshed tears, not of sharp sorrow, but of something gentler relief, perhaps, or recognition. She pressed her lips together, then let them loosen into a small, hesitant smile. So, maybe the problem isn't that Christmas is gone, she murmured. Maybe it's just covered under layers of noise, and I forgot how to brush the noise aside. The snow is thick tonight, I said, nodding toward the white world beyond the glass. But the river is still there underneath, and the lights still shine through. You don't have to remove all the snow at once. You only have to notice the silver beneath it, here and there. She leaned a little closer to the window now, her breath fogging a small circle on the glass. With one fingertip, she traced a slow, gentle line through the mist, drawing a simple star. It glowed faintly for a moment before fading, but the gesture itself seemed to steady her. When I get home, she said quietly, I think I'll try to find one small, quiet thing each day. A walk under the lights when the streets are almost empty. A mug of hot chocolate without my phone beside me. A few minutes just watching the sky. I don't know if it will feel like those old Christmases, but perhaps it will feel peaceful. And maybe that is enough. More than enough, I replied. If you can find even one peaceful moment, one gentle breath, one silver reflection on a dark night, then the magic hasn't faded. It has simply changed its shape. She turned away from the window and met my gaze, and this time, her smile reached her eyes, small but real, like the first star appearing in the evening sky. Thank you, she said, for reminding me to look. I thought I had to feel something big. I forgot that a small, quiet feeling can also be true. The train moved on, carrying us past the frozen river, past distant villages and fields, where the snow lay like soft, white quilts over the sleeping earth. Inside the carriage, the lanterns continued their slow, gentle sway, casting warm circles of light over folded blankets and resting hands. The girl who thought Christmas had faded now sat a little straighter, her shoulders uncurled, her gaze more open. She watched the night as it unfolded outside the window, not searching for fireworks or grand displays, but simply noticing the modest tree in a lonely square the soft glimmer of stars on ice, the quiet suggestion of laughter carried on the cold air. And as the Christmas train glided deeper into the winter night, her heart, a heart that had felt dull and dimmed, began to find its own soft glow again. Not blazing, not demanding, but steady and peaceful, like a small candle protected from the wind. In that gentle, silver-lit carriage, surrounded by snow and stars and the rhythmic whisper of wheels on tracks, she remembered that even in the loudest season, there is always room for quiet, and that sometimes the deepest magic is the one that sits silently beside us, waiting to be seen. The night had been deepening in quiet, patient layers since we first left the station between days. But it was only when I returned to my original seat that I felt how far we had already traveled, not in distance, which the train did not bother to measure for us, but in the soft geography of our hearts. The woman who carried too many lists slept peacefully, still cradled by the lantern's halo. The man who missed someone at the table sat with his head leaned back and his eyes half closed, his expression turned inward, not toward a fresh wound, but toward something older, wrapped carefully in memory. The young woman who had thought Christmas had faded now sat near her window with her scarf loosened, watching the snow with a quiet, steady gaze. All of them were still, not rigidly, but in the way of people who have at last found a place where nothing urgent is required of them. I sank into my seat and let my hands rest in my lap, feeling the gentle sway of the carriage settle my thoughts into longer, slower lines. Outside, the world had shifted once more. We were moving through a region where the land opened into wide plains, low and almost level, so that the sky seemed to stretch without end in every direction. The clouds that had drifted across the moon earlier had thinned and parted, leaving the heavens clear and wide like a great dark lake filled with silver sparks. The stars were so numerous and so calm that, for a brief, breathless moment, I felt as though we were traveling not across the earth at all, but along the edge of some quiet celestial sea, our windows turned toward a tide of distant lights. It was then that the conductor appeared again at the front of the carriage, as silently as a thought. He stood for a little while without speaking, his figure outlined against the warm glow behind him, his cap shadowing his eyes. When he moved, he did so with the same measured grace as before, but this time there was something even softer in his manner, as if he were aware of the fragile drowsiness that had begun to settle over his passengers. He lifted one hand and rested it lightly on the brass rail, his fingers relaxed, and when he spoke, his voice was so gentle that it seemed to arise not only from his mouth, but also from the hush of the night itself. "If you wish," he said, "we can let the night grow quieter now. The lanterns can rest a little, and the stars can take a turn at watching over you. There is no need to be afraid. The train knows the way, and the world outside is very soft tonight." His words moved through the carriage like a mild breeze under a half-opened window. Those who were awake turned their heads toward him. Those who were sleeping did not stir, but their rest seemed to deepen, as if his voice had smoothed the surface of their dreams. Without waiting for any answers, he began to walk slowly down the aisle, pausing by each lantern. At every stop, he reached up with a practiced hand and turned the small brass knob beneath the glass. The light in each lantern dimmed, not abruptly, but like the setting of a sun that has decided to linger a little longer on the horizon. The warm gold softened to amber, then to a pale, quiet glow, leaving behind only enough warmth to trace the outlines of our seats, our hands, and the curve of the carriage walls. As one lantern after another gentled its flame, the stars outside grew clearer and more present, stepping forward from the darkness like shy companions invited closer to the fire. The windows, which had previously reflected so much of the interior, our faces, the swaying lights, the polished wood now showed more of the outside world and less of ourselves. The sky pressed nearer, or seemed to. The glass felt almost thinner, as if one could lay a hand upon it and feel not the cold pain, but the actual breath of the night beyond. The snow-covered plains shone faintly under the starlight, their white softened to bluish silver, and the dark lines of distant trees lay across them like quiet handwriting that the earth had written to the sky. When the conductor reached the middle of the carriage, the light was no more than a murmur, a background whisper compared to the cool clarity of the stars. He paused there and turned to us once more. "If you like," he said, "you may close your eyes and breathe with the train for a while. Its rhythm is very old. It has carried many tired hearts, and it knows how to move without jarring them. If you prefer to watch, then watch slowly, as if the world outside were breathing too." He gave a small, reassuring nod, his gaze passing gently over each of us, and then, as before, he continued to the end of the carriage and slipped through the door, leaving us alone with the softened lanterns and the wide, watching sky. For a few breaths, no one moved. It was as if we had all been waiting for this precise balance of light and shadow without knowing it. The glow of the lanterns lingered like a memory of warmth, while the stars poured their cool, steady shimmer through the windows. I became aware of the sound of the wheels with new clarity. Not a clatter, not a rush, but a low, endlessly repeating pattern, like a lullaby hummed under the breath. The train did not lurch or strain. It glided as if riding on the smooth, invisible surface of a river made of time. Each gentle turn, each subtle rise and fall seemed to be part of a larger, soothing breath. I inhaled slowly, letting the air expand in my chest, and exhaled to the same rhythm as the wheels. After a moment, I sensed that others were doing the same, not by sight, but by some quiet intuition, as if the carriage itself were aware of our lungs moving in unison. The woman with the lists, even in her sleep, seemed to breathe more deeply. The man who missed someone at the table sat very still, but his shoulders no longer held that slight, constant tension. They rose and fell with a gentler cadence now, as if his heart had found a slower, more peaceful tempo. The young woman with the scarf turned her face toward the window and rested her cheek against the cool glass, her eyes half open, watching the stars as though they were thoughts drifting slowly across the surface of her mind. Outside, the landscape broadened into something almost indistinct, a soft merging of snow and sky and distant silhouettes. We passed a small, frozen lake, its surface so smooth that it reflected not only the stars and the moon, but also the faint silver streak of the train itself, gliding along like a ghostly twin. On the far shore, a line of cottages sat with their roofs bowed under snow, their windows mostly dark, save for an occasional ember-like glow where a fire had been left to burn low into the night. A thread of smoke rose from one chimney, pale against the deep blue sky, curling upward until it was indistinguishable from the silver clouds. Everything we passed seemed to be wrapped in its own quiet dream, and the train, moving patiently through it, felt like a dream within a dream. I let my gaze wander upward, beyond the shapes of the earth, to the slow, unblinking stars. They did not shout their presence, nor did they demand wonder. They simply shone, each one a small, steady point of light in the vastness. Some appeared brighter than others. Some were faint, almost imaginary. But together, they formed patterns that had watched over countless winters, over many other Christmas Eves, when people had looked up from doorways and windows and asked the sky unspoken questions. On this night, the stars seemed especially tender, as if aware that the train carried a fragile cargo of weary hearts that needed their quiet company. As I watched, I began to feel a sense of loosening inside myself, as though knots I had not even known were there were slowly unraveling, worries that had traveled with me onto the platform. Small but persistent anxieties, unfinished tasks, unspoken fears started to drift away, not in a dramatic rush, but in a soft, gradual dissolve, like snowflakes melting on a warm palm. The rhythm of the train's movement, the gentle dimness of the lanterns, the open, silvered sky, all of it worked together to create a space in which nothing demanded my attention, where thoughts could become as slow and light as the falling snow. At some point, without quite deciding to, I closed my eyes. The darkness behind my eyelids was not empty. It shone faintly with after images of the stars, as if they had imprinted themselves there. The sound of the wheels became clearer still, a patient, repeating pattern that seemed to say, over and over, "We are going, we are going, we are going," but without urgency, without insistence. It was not the going that mattered now, but the gentle, continuous motion. I matched my breathing to it, letting each inhale rise with the train's forward glide, each exhale fall with the subtle settling of the carriage. Time lost its sharp edges, its numbers and divisions. It became instead a long, slow ribbon of moments, each one gently touching the next. When I opened my eyes again, I did so slowly, as though waking from a nap taken on a sunlit afternoon rather than in the midst of a winter night. The scene had not changed dramatically. This was not a night for sudden transformations, but there was a deepened softness to it, as if the world outside and the carriage within had grown even more synchronized in their quiet. The stars still shone, but now a faint, silvery mist had begun to drift over parts of the plain, hugging the ground in low, curling tendrils. It shimmered faintly in the starlight, turning the snow into a gentle, glowing sea. From somewhere in the distance came the soft outline of a hill, its crest bearing a single, bare tree that stood alone against the sky, its branches like ink strokes on a pale page. The passengers around me seemed more at ease, as if the night of slow stars had reached into each of them and loosened something that had long been clenched. The woman with the lists shifted slightly in her sleep, a faint smile touching the corners of her mouth, as though some pleasant, long-forgotten moment were unfolding behind her closed eyes. The man who missed someone at the table rested his hand on the seat beside him, palm open, fingers lightly curved, as if acknowledging an absence while no longer gripping it so tightly. The young woman with the scarf sat as still as a figure in a painting, but her expression was serene, her eyes following the stars with the calm interest of someone who has given herself permission to look slowly, without expectation. In that shared, quiet carriage, it felt as though the train had become more than a means of travel. It was also a kind of heartbeat, a gentle, steady pulse moving through us all. The night itself seemed to be breathing with us, the stars blinking their slow, patient eyes, the snow reflecting their light in a silver echo. Every tired heart on board, whether awake or sleeping, whether heavy with lists or grief or disappointment, was held in this long, deep exhale of the world, a moment stretched out just enough to allow the knots to soften, the shoulders to lower, the thoughts to quiet. And as the Christmas train continued its passage through the soft fields and under the wide, starlit sky, I understood that this part of the journey was not about towns or stations or even memories. It was about learning, if only for one night, how to be carried gently through the darkness without needing to control the path. The night of slow stars folded itself around us like a silver cloak, and the train moved on, unhurried and sure, preparing in its patient way to reveal the small, quiet miracles that often arrive only after we have first allowed ourselves to rest. The night of slow stars had settled so deeply around us that it felt as though the train were gliding through the quiet center of a long, peaceful sigh. Time did not stop, it never does, but it loosened its grip and allowed us to rest within it, like leaves floating gently on a wide, calm river. At some point, without quite knowing when, the rhythm of the wheels grew a shade more distinct, as if the train were reminding us that journeys, no matter how gentle, do move forward. The stars outside remained steady, but the snow-lit land began to gather itself into clearer shapes again. The suggestion of distant rooftops, the rounded shoulders of hills, the delicate crossings of narrow roads. The night was no less soft than before, yet there was a quiet shift in the air, a feeling that something small and tender had begun to awaken. I became aware of this change first in myself. It was not a sudden revelation, no flare of insight or rush of emotion, but a subtle warmth, like the first trace of pink that appears on a winter horizon long before the sun is visible. The weight in my chest which I had carried so long I had almost forgotten its separate presence, felt lighter, as if someone had gently loosened the straps of an invisible pack. My thoughts, usually busy and endlessly circling, now moved more slowly, like snowflakes drifting in a calm wind. There was room, at last, for noticing, for the way the lantern's softened light brushed the edges of the seats, for the small movements of sleeping shoulders, for the delicate silver lines of frost that had grown thicker at the corners of the windows. The carriage felt less like a room and more like a shared cocoon, holding each of us in a kindly, patient embrace. The first small miracle announced itself so quietly that it could easily have gone unnoticed. The woman who carried too many lists stirred in her sleep, not with a start, but with the gentle shifting of someone moving from a shallow dream into a deeper, more peaceful one. Her head rolled slowly on the cushion, her cheek brushing the cold glass of the window for an instant before settling back into the hollow it had made. One hand slipped from her lap and rested, open against her coat. Between her fingers, something pale and folded glimmered faintly in the dim light. At first, I thought it was merely a scrap of paper that had traveled with her from her day, the corner of a receipt, perhaps, or the torn edge of a notepad. But as the train passed a cluster of small, glowing houses and their light slid across her hand, I saw that it was not a fragment at all, but a star. It was a simple thing, made from a piece of paper folded with patient, careful creases, its points uneven but earnest. The edges were slightly worn, as if it had been carried in a pocket for a while or handled by small fingers. Not a single list, no instructions, no appointments, no names, no times, only the familiar shape of a star, the kind children make at kitchen tables with their tongues caught between their teeth in concentration. The paper itself bore faint traces of printed text on the inside, but the words had been hidden, folded away into the structure, leaving only a plain outer surface, soft and blank in the lantern light. It smelled faintly, it seemed, of something sweet and citrus-like, as if it had once rested near a bowl of oranges or been touched by hands dusted with sugar. I did not know how it had come to rest in her hand. Perhaps she had tucked it into her pocket long ago and forgotten it, and the train's gentle rocking had coaxed it free. Perhaps it had been slipped there by some kind, unseen hand, the conductor's, or even the train's, if one believed in such things. But what mattered was not the explanation, only the expression that moved across her sleeping face. As her fingers curled naturally around the folded shape, her lips relaxed from their line of habitual worry and softened into the hint of a childlike smile. The crease between her brows smoothed, she breathed in more deeply, and for a moment, as the lights of a distant town glowed softly on the glass, she looked as she might once have looked, standing by a dark window with a candle on the sill, watching snow and believing that the world would take care of itself for a while. A little further down the carriage, the man who missed someone at the table sat with his eyes closed, his hand still resting on the seat beside him. The night outside had shifted again. We were passing through a low valley where the snow lay in smooth, undisturbed expanses, broken only by the occasional dark line of a fence or a lone tree. The stars reflected faintly on the surface, turning the fields into wide, silver lakes. As we glided along, the train curved toward a small town tucked into the hollow of the valley. Its houses were modest, their roofs bowed under snow, their chimneys breathing thin, pale smoke into the cold air. At the center stood a square with a fountain, now frozen into delicate shapes, and beside it, a church whose windows glowed warmly against the dark. The man opened his eyes just as we came level with that square. In one of the church's side windows, a figure moved into view, a silhouette, nothing more, framed by the golden light behind it. The shape of the shoulders, the tilt of the head, the way the hands lifted and then lowered, as if placing something carefully on a table. It was impossible, from our distance, to see this person clearly, yet I saw the man's breath catch in his throat, and his fingers pressed a little more firmly into the empty seat at his side. For a brief moment, the reflection in the glass brought the silhouette into alignment with his own face, and in that merged image, he saw not a stranger, but the familiar outline of the one he had lost. It lasted only a heartbeat. The train moved on, the window slipped from view, and the silhouette dissolved into memory. But something in him had shifted. He did not cling to the moment as if trying to hold it fast, nor did he turn away as if it were too painful. He simply bowed his head slightly, as though someone had entered the room and greeted him in a language only he could hear. A tear slid softly from the corner of his eye, but it did not fall in a sudden rush. It moved with the same slow grace as the stars reflected on the snow. A gentle, shining line that traced the curve of his cheek. His lips moved, forming words I could not hear, and yet I felt them, perhaps a name, perhaps a thank you, perhaps only a quiet yes to the presence that had brushed past him. His grief did not vanish. It would never vanish, but some small, hard corner of it had softened, made round and luminous by the sense that love, once given, does not entirely disappear into the dark. Across from where I sat, the young woman with the scarf had not closed her eyes, even when the lanterns dimmed. She had watched the slow stars and the silver plains with a calm, almost reverent attention, as if finally willing to let the night speak without interruption. Now, as the train moved beyond the valley and into a region of low, rolling hills, her posture changed. Her shoulders, which had been drawn inward for so long, relaxed, and she leaned forward, resting her forearms on the window ledge. A small town appeared on one of the hills, its houses clustered like a handful of stones gently placed in the palm of the land. A string of humble lights traced the outline of a narrow street, and at the far end stood another tree, shorter than the others we had seen, its top leaning slightly to one side. Its ornaments were sparse, its star a little crooked, yet it glowed with a quiet determination, shining into the still air. The young woman stared at that tree for a long moment. In the reflection, I saw her eyes widen, the way a child's eyes widen when they first see something that feels as though it was placed there just for them. The tired film that had clouded her gaze seemed to thin, letting through a clearer light. She lifted one hand, pressing her fingertips gently to the glass, aligning them with the tiny lights of the tree. Her lips parted, and she breathed out, very slowly, as if she were finally releasing a sigh she had held since childhood. In that instant, I saw the spark in her eyes return, not the forced excitement demanded by crowded shops and loud music, but a soft, inward glow, like embers coming back to life under a delicate breath. It was not the old magic, exactly. It was something quieter, wiser, but just as real. The miracles in that carriage were not written in fire or thunder. They did not change the shape of the world or erase its sorrows. They were small, almost fragile, and yet they carried a depth that grander wonders sometimes lack. A folded paper star found in a tired woman's hand, a fleeting reflection that let a grieving man glimpse love in the window of a distant church, a crooked tree on a hill, rekindling a young woman's ability to feel something gentle and true. Each moment was like a tiny candle lit in a room where the lamps had been turned down. A new, soft light added to the quiet. As I watched these changes unfold around me, I felt something move in myself as well. I thought of the reasons I had come to the station between days, the heaviness I had carried without allowing myself to name it fully, the quiet disappointments of years, the faint erosion of joy under the steady drip of responsibilities, the sense that life, while still beautiful, had become a little too sharp in its corners. On this train, surrounded by snow and lanterns and slow, patient stars, those sharp corners had begun to round. I could not have pointed to a single instant when it happened. There was no dramatic revelation, no voice from the sky, no sudden rush of tears, only a gradual, gentle softening, like ice yielding to the slow warmth of an oncoming spring. The train continued its unhurried journey, carrying us past towns and churches, hills and rivers, forests and fields. The miracles remained small, but they were enough. A woman slept with a star in her hand. A man sat beside an empty seat with less fear of its emptiness. A young traveler looked out of the window and truly saw the night for the first time in many Christmases. And I, sitting amidst them all, felt my own heart beating more quietly, more kindly, as if it too had been given permission to rest from its constant effort to brace, to anticipate, to defend. In the gentle cradle of that carriage, bathed in dim lantern light and silver reflections, the Christmas train did not promise to change our lives. It did something smaller and perhaps more precious. It offered each of us a single, tender truth that even in the most tired seasons, even in the midst of grief and disappointment and long, heavy years, the world still held tiny, patient miracles waiting, like the stars above the snow, for someone to look up and notice their soft, quiet shine. The night continued to carry us in its gentle arms, and the Christmas train moved forward as if gliding through layers of soft, unfolding pages. After the carriage of small miracles, a hush deeper than before settled among us, not empty, but full of something newly tender. The woman with the paper star slept on, her fingers loosely curled around their fragile treasure. The man beside the empty place at the table rested with his eyes half closed, his expression quieter, as if he were listening to a lullaby only he could hear. The young woman in the scarf remained at her window, but the guardedness in her posture had eased into something calm and open. We were all learning, each in our own way, how to sit more gently with ourselves. It was then that the world outside began to change again, drawing itself into clearer lines, as though the night were ready to show us the dreaming towns it had kept tucked close to its heart. The first town appeared almost shyly, at the edge of a long, low hill, where the snow had piled in soft, rounded shapes, like pillows stacked for some invisible sleeper. The train curved around the hill, and as we came alongside it, the town revealed itself in quiet details. Small houses with sloping roofs leaned toward one another, their walls painted in faded colors, pale blue, soft ochre, muted green that appeared and disappeared under veils of snow. Balconies, narrow and delicate, reached out into the night like small hands, their railings lined with icicles that shone like strings of crystal beads in the moonlight. On some of these balconies, forgotten flower boxes stood stiff and bare, the soil beneath the snow holding the memory of summer geraniums and herbs long since gone to sleep. A thin breeze moved through the narrow streets, carrying with it a faint sigh as it brushed past shutters and chimneys. But even the wind seemed careful not to wake anyone. The train slowed almost imperceptibly, as if to match the town's breathing. Through one lit window, we glimpsed a kitchen table with a teapot left waiting, its steam long faded. Through another, the silhouette of someone bent over a cradle, perhaps humming softly. At the corner of a small square, a fountain sat frozen in mid-motion, its once splashing water transformed into elegant, glassy curves that caught the light like a sculpture of clear, quiet time. Snow lay in its basin like a quilt, the edges smooth and undisturbed. Nearby, a lamppost cast a golden circle that pooled on the cobblestones, and within that circle, the falling flakes performed a slow, turning dance, rising and sinking like tiny, glowing feathers. The town did not seem deserted. Rather, it felt full of sleeping stories, each house cradling the gentle weight of dreams. The passengers, almost as one, leaned a little closer to the windows. The movement was subtle, a shared inclination more felt than seen, as if the sight of that first town had tugged at something deep and familiar inside each of us. Even those who slept shifted into softer positions, their bodies responding to the changing texture of the night. I found myself resting my fingertips lightly on the glass, feeling only the cold surface but imagining the silent warmth behind those distant walls. It was easy, in that moment, to picture a child's shoes set neatly on a mat, a scarf drying on the back of a chair, a half-read book open beside a dozing lamp. The town seemed to dream not only of its present, but of all its past winters as well. Each snowfall layered gently over the one before, preserving memories in quiet drifts. Soon, another town emerged from the darkness. This one nestled in a small hollow, where the hills curved inward, as if protecting it from the wind. Its streets spiraled out from a central square dominated by a tiny chapel with a bell tower that looked almost too slender to bear the weight of its bell. Yet there it stood, pale stone against the deep blue sky, its steeple tipped with a small cross that shone faintly, catching the moon's silver gaze. A single candle flickered in the chapel window, its flame trembling but stubborn, like a lone star that had descended to rest among the houses. The snow on the church steps was marked by only a few footprints, already softening at the edges, as if someone had walked there recently and then slipped calmly back into the night. Around the square, balconies leaned over the narrow streets, their wrought iron railings drawing gentle curves against the snow-bright walls. On one balcony, a string of Christmas lights had been left on, their colors dulled by the late hour, but still patiently glowing soft red, deep green, a single golden bulb that shone more brightly than the rest. From another, a length of laundry line hung empty, sagging slightly under the weight of snow, as if the everyday life it usually carried, shirts, towels, children's scarves, had taken a night off to rest. Small chapels and shrines dotted the corners of the streets, their tiny alcoves sheltering statues and candles and sprigs of evergreen, each one a quiet, steadfast point of light in the drifting white. As we passed these chapels, I noticed that the reflections in the window began to shift. No longer did I see only our present faces superimposed on the sleeping towns. Here and there, in the faint gleam of the glass, there appeared younger versions of us, all children, with eyes wide open, cheeks flushed with cold, noses pressed eagerly to the panes. For just a moment, the woman with the paper star looked like a little girl staring at a pastry shop window, her worries not yet written into the lines around her mouth. The man beside the empty place at the table appeared as a boy holding his breath to hear the first Christmas bell. The young woman in the scarf became a child again, her gaze unguarded, filled with a wonder that had not yet learned to doubt itself. The reflections overlapped gently, present and past resting side by side like two hands folded together. I realized, with a soft astonishment, that every town we passed seemed to hold a piece of someone's memory, as if the train were tracing a path not only through geography, but through the private constellations of our lives. Balconies, chapels, frozen fountains, windows lit by solitary lamps. All of them were familiar in some quiet way, even if we had never visited these towns before. They echoed the places we ourselves had once known. The house where a grandmother stood at the window. The square where carols had been sung in thin winter coats. The church where candles had turned simple faces into golden icons of belonging. The snow, lying peacefully over everything, seemed to act as a bridge between these scattered images, smoothing their edges and connecting them in a long, continuous dream. The train moved on, threading its way past yet another town, and another, each one distinct yet sharing the same gentle stillness. One village perched on a slope, its roofs stepping down the hill like a quiet staircase. A narrow lane wound between them, lit by a series of small lanterns that cast overlapping pools of light on the snow. Another town sat near a bend in a river, its waters frozen into a patchwork of ice and shadow, bridges arched delicately above it like sleeping cats. In one square, a statue of an angel stood in the center of a frozen fountain, its stone wings dusted with snow, its face turned upward as if in silent listening to the sky. In another, a simple wooden bench, half covered in snow, faced a modest tree decorated with paper ornaments that stirred just slightly in the light breeze, rustling like the pages of a much-loved book. Inside the carriage, the atmosphere became almost reverent. No one spoke. Words would have felt too solid, too heavy for the delicate web of impressions the night was weaving. Instead, we let our eyes travel slowly across the scenes, unfurling beyond the glass, letting the quiet of those towns seep into us, softening whatever hard places remained. The woman with the star woke briefly, blinking in the dim light, and gazed out at a row of balconies where blankets hung over railings like slumbering flags. Her fingers tightened gently around the folded paper, and for a moment, her face carried a look of peaceful recognition, as if she had found some long-missed corner of her childhood street. The man in his worn coat watched a small chapel disappear behind us, his eyes shining with unshed tears that no longer seemed afraid to be seen. The young woman's reflection merged once more with the glow of a crooked tree on a distant hill, and she smiled to herself, the expression small but steady. As we glided past town after town, it seemed to me that the night was sharing a quiet secret, that even when we feel most alone, there are always lights burning somewhere, candles on windowsills, lamps above doorways, stars reflected in fountains and rivers and frozen ponds. People sleep, people wake. They grieve and hope and prepare their tables and hang their decorations and fold their paper stars, each in their own little corner of the world. And above them, the sky stretches wide, silver and patient, watching over balcony and chapel, over fountain and tree, over trains that carry tired hearts through snow. The towns we passed were dreaming, yes, but they were also holding us in their dream, lending us their calm silhouettes, their gentle, sleeping faces, so that we might remember that the world, even in its quietest hours, is full of small, shining lives. The Christmas train, faithful and unhurried, carried us along this string of dreaming towns, like beads on a soft, silver thread. We, the passengers, became part of that silent garland, watching and being watched, remembering and being remembered by the places we passed. Each town, with its balconies and chapels and frozen fountains, gave us a gift without knowing it, a glimpse of our own hearts reflected in snow and stone and light. As the night moved slowly toward whatever dawn it had prepared for us, we remained there in our warm, dim carriage, eyes turned outward, breathing in time with the gentle rocking of the train, and letting the dreaming towns of Christmas fold themselves tenderly into the long, peaceful journey of our rest. Somewhere between one dreaming town and the next, the night began to change in a way that was almost imperceptible at first. The stars, which had watched over us with such steady patience, did not vanish, but their light grew paler at the very edges of the sky, as if a thin veil of silver mist were slowly being drawn across them. The snow outside kept its soft, serene glow, but its whiteness seemed to hold a faint new color, the barest hint of blue and rose, like the inside of a seashell. The Christmas train continued its calm, constant rhythm, wheels whispering over the hidden tracks, lanterns swaying gently. But beneath the familiar sounds was a subtle sense of preparation, as if the journey, for all its timelessness, was turning toward a quiet conclusion. Inside the carriage, the air was warm and still, scented faintly with pine and the lingering memory of oranges and spices carried in on coats and scarves. We had grown used to the dim lantern light, to the silver reflections on the glass, to the shared hush of strangers resting side by side. The woman who carried too many lists stirred before the others, not with a start, but with the slow, natural waking of someone who has, at last, slept deeply enough. She drew a longer breath, her fingers tightening for a moment around the folded paper star in her hand, then opened her eyes and blinked at the window. For a heartbeat, she looked puzzled, as if unsure whether she was still dreaming. And then I saw recognition return the snow, the faint stars, the soft glow of towns slipping by. Her shoulders rose and fell in a sigh that was neither heavy nor restless. It was the sigh of someone laying something down. Across the carriage, the man who missed someone at the table woke as if responding to some silent signal. His head lifted from the cushioned back of his seat, and he sat very still, listening to the sound of the wheels. His hand remained where it had rested through the night, palm open on the seat beside him, but now there was a softer expression in his eyes, as if the shape of that empty space had become something gentler, less jagged. The young woman with the scarf had not truly slept. She had drifted in and out of a light, drowsy watchfulness, eyes half closed, forehead touching the window. As the sky lightened by degrees, she straightened slowly, drawing the wool around her shoulders with a quiet, thoughtful movement, like someone preparing to step back into the cold after a pause beside a fire. It was then that the conductor appeared, once more, as if called forth by the changing light. He stood at the front of the carriage for a long moment, letting his gaze travel over us all. In this almost morning, his uniform seemed softer, the deep blue of his coat touched by the same faint rose that brushed the horizon. His face, lined but calm, carried the look of someone who had seen many nights, many passengers, and had learned to love the brief, luminous moments when weary people were allowed to rest. When he spoke, his voice was as gentle as it had been at the start, but there was a new tone in it, now a low, steady note of nearing home. "We are coming toward the stations where you will return to your days," he said, his words flowing through the warm air like water through a quiet stream. "Not all at once, one by one. Each of you will step down where the tracks touch your own life again. You will find that the streets and houses and clocks are as you left them. The world does not change quickly, but you will carry something back with you, if you wish to." He walked slowly down the aisle, his steps in time with the train's gentle rocking. As he passed each seat, his hand dipped into the deep pocket of his coat and emerged with something small, which he placed carefully on the table, or in an open palm, or beside a folded blanket. There was no flourish in his movements, no ceremony, only the quiet, deliberate generosity of someone handing over something precious and simple. I watched as he paused beside the woman with the lists. She looked up at him, still holding the paper star, and he smiled at her with a warmth that seemed to recognize not only this night, but all the days that had led her here. "For you," he murmured, setting a tiny brass bell on the small table beside her window. It was smooth and modest, its surface worn in places as if many fingers had held it. A thin red thread was looped through its handle, frayed slightly, as though it had once hung on many branches. "To remind you that you may call time to rest, even in your own kitchen," he added. "You may ring it in your heart when the lists grow too long." She lifted the bell with careful fingers, the paper star still in her other hand. When she turned it gently, it released a single, light note, so soft it was almost more a vibration than a sound. Even so, it seemed to travel through the carriage, touching each of us in turn. Her eyes shone, not with tears now, but with a bright, quiet gratitude. "I had forgotten," she whispered, half to herself, "that I am allowed to pause before everything is done." She closed her hand around the bell as she might have closed it around a promise. Further down the carriage, the conductor stopped beside the man with the empty place at the table. For a moment, he simply stood there, not intruding on the silence that had grown around the man like a respectful halo. Then he reached once more into his pocket and drew out a small sprig of evergreen, bound at the base with a thin silver thread. The needles were deep green, carrying the rich, resinous scent of winter forests, of hillsides under snow, of quiet churches where wreaths hang above doors. He placed it gently on the seat where the man's open hand rested, and for a breath, his fingers brushed the man's knuckles in a brief, steadying touch. "For you," he said softly, "so that when you set your table, there will be a place where love can sit, even if the chair is empty." Evergreen remembers how to hold green in the coldest months. Let it remind you that your memories are not a weight to flee, but a branch to rest your heart upon. The man looked at the sprig for a long time, his eyes tracing the curve of each needle, the way the silver thread caught the dim light. Then he placed his hand over it, not in a grasping way, but as if blessing it. "Thank you," he breathed. "Perhaps this year I will set a small plate by her chair and lay this there, not to pretend she is still here, but to admit that she always will be, in some way." His voice did not shake. It flowed gently, like a stream finding a new path around a stone. When the conductor reached the young woman with the scarf, he paused with a look of quiet recognition, as though he had watched the guardedness fall from her eyes during the night and wished to honor that small, courageous surrender. From his pocket, he brought out a snowflake no bigger than her thumb, cut from a thin piece of silver-white paper. Its pattern was intricate, but not perfect. One branch was slightly larger than the others, one edge a little uneven, as if it had been cut by hand, with care but without haste. He placed it on the ledge below her window, where the starlight and the early hint of dawn could both touch it. "For you," he said, "so that when the season feels too loud, you can remember that quiet beauty is also part of it. Snowflakes do not shout. They drift. They rest on shoulders and branches. They soften the shapes of things. You are allowed to look for their kind of magic, not only the bright and noisy kind." Her fingers brushed the delicate paper, and her eyes warmed with a smile that was all the more moving for its smallness. "I think," she replied, "I will keep this in my pocket when I walk under the lights. It will remind me to look for the gentle parts of Christmas, the ones that don't demand anything from me." The word gentle lingered in the air between us like a soft echo. At last, the conductor came to stand beside my seat. I had not been expecting anything. I had thought myself simply the watcher, the recorder of this journey. Yet he reached into his pocket once more and drew out a smooth, oval stone, no larger than a walnut. Its surface was pale and cool, veined with faint silver lines that curved like tiny rivers. He laid it in my palm and closed my fingers around it with a firm, kind pressure. "For you," he said, "something to hold when your thoughts grow sharp again. Stones remember riverbeds and shorelines, but they also remember being shaped by water over long, patient years. You may let time shape you quietly, as the river shapes the stone, instead of always trying to carve yourself into something finished." I felt the stone's gentle weight settle into my hand, solid and grounding. "Thank you," I whispered, feeling the words move through me as much as from me. "I will keep it with me to remember this night. By then, the sky outside the windows had grown noticeably lighter. The deep midnight blue had softened into a cool, translucent gray, and along the far edge of the horizon, a narrow band of rose and gold was beginning to bloom, like a very slow, silent fire. The stars above were fading into this new light, retreating in their own time, without hurry, as if confident that they would be seen again. The snow-covered towns we now passed were touched by the first gentle hints of dawn. Chimney smoke rising a little more briskly, a lamp being lit in an upper window, a figure moving across a small yard, leaving fresh footprints behind. The train's motion changed subtly, the way a river changes as it approaches a bend where branches separate. Its speed did not increase or jolt, but there was a sense of leaning toward something, toward platforms that would appear, toward doors that would open, toward steps that would be taken back into everyday streets. The conductor moved once more to the front of the carriage and rested his hand on the rail, watching us with calm, steady eyes. "When you step down," he said, "your lives will not be newly made. The lists will still exist. The empty chairs will still stand where they did. The busy streets and bright shops will still wait outside your doors. But you will carry bells and evergreens and snowflakes and stones. You will carry this night and the slow stars and the dreaming towns. You will carry the knowing that your hearts can rest, even for just a few breaths, when the days become too heavy." He inclined his head, a small bow of respect to each of us. Outside, in the soft growing light, I could already see the shape of a platform forming ahead, its lamps still shining weakly in the pale dawn, its edges lined with snow. Somewhere, someone would be waiting. Or perhaps no one would, but the door between this gentle, silver world and the ordinary one was drawing closer. We straightened in our seats, quietly, as people do when they know a journey's end is near and they wish to meet it with dignity. Hearts still tired, but softer now, we prepared ourselves for the moment when the Christmas train for tired hearts would open its doors and invite our returning steps back onto the familiar ground of our own lives. The first platform appeared in the soft half-light like an island of stone and snow floating in a pale, waking sea. Lamps along its edge still glowed with the last tenderness of the night, their golden circles paling gently as the sky above them grew slowly brighter. The Christmas train eased its pace until it was barely moving at all, then came to a stop with a deep, quiet breath, as if it, too, were reluctant to disturb the hush it had created. For a moment, no one rose. We all sat in that suspended second between journey and arrival, feeling the weight of the night still resting lightly on our shoulders. Then the woman who carried too many lists gathered herself to stand. She looked smaller than she had at the beginning, not because she had diminished, but because the invisible burdens pressed against her had loosened their grip. In one hand, she held the folded paper star. In the other, the tiny brass bell, its red thread curled softly around her fingers. She smoothed her coat almost absent-mindedly, as if for once Her hands did not quite know what to do without a list to catch and hold. Before she moved toward the door, she turned to the window one last time, watching the snow drift in small, lazy spirals outside. "I suppose," she murmured, "not really to anyone, and yet to all of us, that when I go home, the kitchen will be waiting. The lists will be where I left them, but perhaps I will boil water for tea before I look for them. And perhaps I will sit a little while and ring this bell, even if only in my mind, before I let them climb onto my shoulders again." Her eyes met mine, and there was a warm, quiet question there, as if she were asking whether such a simple act could truly make a difference. I nodded with a small smile. "I think the lists will survive a few minutes of being ignored," I replied gently. "And your heart will cherish those minutes more than you know." She smiled back, and this time the expression was not the automatic upward curve of someone trying to reassure others, but a genuine, soft smile that reached her eyes and lingered there. Then she moved down the aisle, her steps unhurried and sure. The conductor, waiting by the door, opened it with a small bow. A breath of cold morning air entered the carriage, carrying with it the sharp, clean scent of snow and the faint promise of chimney smoke. She stepped onto the platform, her figure briefly framed by the silver light, and then she was gone from view, walking toward the path that would lead her back into the woven pattern of her days, now with a star and a bell tucked quietly into her pocket. The train sighed again, doors closing with a muted whisper, and moved on. The sky above had begun to bloom with the first delicate colors of dawn, soft rose, pale gold, a lingering trace of night's blue. A second platform awaited us not long after, this one smaller, embraced by low hills and a cluster of bare trees dusted with snow. The man who missed someone at the table rose slowly, as if aware that this moment, too, deserved to be treated with care. He held the sprig of evergreen in both hands, cradling it like something alive and dear. He stood by his seat for a moment, looking at the empty place beside him, and then he bowed his head slightly, as if in greeting or farewell to someone only he could see. "Thank you," he whispered to the space, to the sprig, to the night itself. "I will save you a place, not to pretend, but to remember kindly." The words were simple, but they carried the steady, peaceful weight of acceptance. As he walked down the aisle, each step seemed lighter than the last, not because he had left his grief behind, but because he now knew how to carry it more gently, like a cherished photograph kept close to the heart. At the door, the conductor rested a hand on his shoulder for just a heartbeat, then stepped aside. The man descended onto the platform, where the snow lay smooth and the lamps shone with a quiet patience. For an instant, I saw him pause and lift the evergreen sprig toward the pale sky, as if offering his love into the open air. Before turning away to follow the path toward his waiting house and waiting chair, both of which would now feel just a little less cold, the train moved again, faithful, unhurried, gliding through a world that was steadily brightening, though the sun had not yet shown its face. The young woman with the scarf sat very still, watching as a third platform approached a modest one, with a simple bench and a tall clock whose hands pointed calmly toward the new day. Her fingers closed around the paper snowflake, folding it carefully, not to hide it, but to protect it. She drew in a deep breath and then released it slowly, as if exhaling the last of some long-held weariness. "I used to think," she said softly, "that if I couldn't feel the big, bright kind of happiness, then I had lost something forever. Now, I think I will look for the smaller lights, the crooked trees, the quiet cups of chocolate, the way the snow glows under the street lamps. That might be enough." "It is enough," I answered. "Sometimes the gentlest lights are the ones that stay with us the longest." She smiled, not widely, but with a steady warmth that shone in her eyes. Pulling her scarf a little closer around her shoulders, she rose and made her way to the door. The conductor opened it, and the morning air reached in again, carrying now a faint chorus of distant sounds, the clink of shutters being opened, the muffled call of a voice across a yard, the soft push of a broom on a doorstep clearing snow. She stepped onto the platform and stood there a moment, turning her face to the quiet sky. Then, with the snowflake tucked into her pocket like a folded promise, she walked away toward the streets where the season would go on, this time with a gentler, quieter star shining inside her. One by one, at other small stations, only glimpsed in passing, unseen passengers from other carriages disembarked as well, though I did not see their faces. I only sensed the slight lessening of weight, the subtle increase in space, as if the train were slowly exhaling all the tired breaths it had been holding, until at last, as the light grew stronger and the clouds above turned soft white and pearl, I realized that I was alone in my carriage. The seats around me were empty now, bearing only the faint impressions of where bodies had rested and the lingering warmth of their presence. The paper star, the little bell, the evergreen, the snowflake, all had gone out into the waking world. Only I remained, and the stone in my hand, cool and smooth and steady. The conductor appeared once more, this time not at the front, but at the far end of the carriage, as if he had emerged from the very line where the train met the snow. He walked toward me with the same measured, quiet step, his coat moving softly with the motion of the train. The lantern above us glowed more weakly now, its light blending with the pale brightness growing outside. And for the first time, his face seemed touched not only by the warmth of the carriage, but also by the cool clarity of approaching day. "This will be the last circuit before the train rests," he said, his voice low and calm. "It completes its circle through the morning, then slips back onto its hidden tracks between days. You may ride with it a little longer, if you wish, until it returns you to where you first stepped on. After that, it will wait until the snow and the season and a tired heart call it again." I nodded, fingers closing more firmly around the stone. "I would like to stay until then," I replied, "just a little longer in this quiet." "Of course," he answered, as if there had never been any doubt. "This train is very patient. It knows how to wait for hearts to be ready." he moved away, leaving me with the carriage and the growing light. The train, now carrying only me and its own gentle memories, continued along its path. We passed fields that were beginning to show subtle hints of color where the snow thinned over furrows. We passed frozen ponds whose surfaces reflected the pale sky like milky glass. In the distance, smoke rose from chimneys in slow, curling lines, and here and there a figure moved across a yard or along a road, their footsteps leaving delicate traces on the fresh snow. The towns we had seen in darkness were now revealed in soft morning clarity, their sleeping faces turned toward a new day. I sat and watched, my body swaying gently with the motion of the carriage, my thoughts quiet and strangely light. The stone in my palm felt like an anchor, not dragging me down, but holding me calmly in the present moment. I thought of all the hearts that had ridden this train before me, and all the hearts that would ride it in winters yet to come, each bringing their own lists, their own empty chairs, their own faded lights, each leaving with some small, tender token to remind them that rest is not a luxury, but a necessary kind of kindness. At last, the familiar shape of the station between days appeared ahead, rising out of the snow like a memory returning gently to the surface. Its lamps still burned, though they were faint in the morning light, and the old iron sign, with its faded letters, stood patiently where I had first seen it. The train slowed, its wheels singing a softer song, until it came to a complete, peaceful stop. The carriage seemed to take one final breath and then settle. I stood, feeling the slight stiffness in my legs from long sitting, and made my way down the aisle. Every seat I passed looked like a small, quiet story that had just finished its last chapter and closed its cover, ready to be placed gently back on a shelf. At the door, the conductor waited, his hand on the latch, his eyes kind and clear. "Will I remember this?" I asked him softly. "All of it? The stars, the towns, the bells, the faces?" "You will," he said. "Not always sharply, not in every detail, but in the way your shoulders will lower when you see snow falling outside your window, in the way you will pause before answering the next demand, in the way you will sit for a moment beside an empty chair and let your heart be soft instead of hard. The train will travel with you in those small choices, and when your heart grows very tired again, and the season and the snow and the quiet night align, you may find the station once more, perhaps in your dreams, perhaps in a walk under lantern light. It is never as far as it seems." He opened the door. The morning air flowed in cool, clean, touched with the scent of chimney smoke and distant bread. I stepped down onto the platform, feeling the snow give gently under my boots, the world around me both familiar and newly tender. When I turned back, the train already seemed less solid, its silver sides shimmering slightly in the pale light, as if the boundary between steel and sky had grown thin. The conductor lifted a hand in a small wave. I returned it, my fingers still closed around the stone in my palm. Then, with a whisper and a sigh, the Christmas train for tired hearts began to move again, gliding soundlessly along the tracks until, quite suddenly, and quite softly, it was no longer there. In its place remained only the snow, the tracks fading into the distance, the lamps of the station, and the stillness of a winter morning. Yet I knew that somewhere, just beyond the edge of ordinary time, it continued its patient circle, waiting for the next weary soul who needed a night of silver light and quiet dreams. I turned toward the archway and the path that would lead me back into the day. The stone lay warm now in my hand, its surface smoothed by my touch. I slipped it into my pocket and felt its gentle weight settle there. A small, steady reminder that rest is always possible, that gentleness is always allowed. And as I walked away from the station between days, the snow falling softly around me, I sent out a silent blessing on every heart that would one day board that train, that they might find a seat by the window, a lantern's soft glow, a calm, protective night, that their breathing might slow and deepen, that their grief might be held kindly, that their tiredness might be wrapped in peace. And now, to you who have traveled this quiet journey in words, may your own heart feel a little softer, a little lighter, as if a gentle hand had smoothed the creases of your day. May you feel the hush of falling snow somewhere deep inside you, and the slow, silver turning of stars above a sleeping world. May you find, in your own room, a small corner of this carriage of calm, perhaps in the way the light falls on the wall, or the way the air grows still when you close your eyes. Tonight, may your thoughts grow slow and quiet, like a train moving through soft, endless fields. May your dreams be gentle and your sleep deep and peaceful, as if you, too, were being carried through the night on the Christmas train for tired hearts, wrapped in silver light and soft, quiet rest until the morning comes.